If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about the team. Wait.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM. Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Smash that like button, share button, retweet button. You want to get interactive with the show and talk with myself, Mark, and Jason will be joining us shortly. Go over to the YouTube page, DSM Media, hit that subscribe button, and you can put your comments in there, and I can put them right up on the screen, right like my examples here, Sixers in 5, and I'm Batman.
I told you, Sixers in 4.
Talk about today on Overreaction Monday. That's what it is. It's Overreaction Monday. It's time to overreact. We're brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products, goat and below the waist maintenance. Make sure you check them out. Manscaped.com. Use promo code DSM at checkout. Get you 20% off free shipping and lets them know Team DSM sent you. I am Phil Stifler, your host at Beard and Knowledge on Twitter. Make sure you shoot me a follow. I am joined by my man, always on Mondays, Overreaction Mondays, Mark Moscatelli. You can follow him at Mark with a C, Moscatelli. How you doing, Mark?
Very well, very well. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing great. We're just waiting for Jason. You know, us old heads, sometimes, computer issues happen. And, he texted me and said he got a slight little computer malfunction. It might take us about 6 hours to fix that. But, hey, we're not like the youth of today that could just fix a computer, in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I can barely turn on and off computers. It's really bad.
I'm the same way. All right, so we got a jam-packed show today. We're going to talk the Batman because Jason did see it this weekend. And I want to talk a little Batman. So we're going to wait till he gets on for that portion of it because we have not seen it yet. We're going to talk Sixers, obviously, 2 big games this weekend that we've had. And we're in that home stretch now of the season. Baseball, still no progress, but progress to an extent. Some rule changes going into effect. Coach K had his last home game. So we're going to talk Coach K. So jam-packed episode of Overreaction Monday here. So let's start with the Sixers. All right, Mark?
Let's do it.
Friday night, huge win against the Cavaliers.
Yes, it was.
Saturday, big letdown against the Heat. But again, this was a very, very tough stretch. Cavaliers, Heat, Bulls tonight, then the Nets, on Wednesday. You had to expect there's going to be some hiccups along the way. They weren't going to win 24 straight games with James Harden. Are you more concerned? Because my Overreaction Monday statement is I am more concerned with our win on Friday night than I am with the loss on Saturday night.
Well, they're allowing teams to take big leads, and they got to come back and win, which is all fine and dandy when you have Harden in the lineup. But it's more of a one-off. That's not something that you could sustain over time. So they need to.
What were they down Friday night at one point?
They were down like 21 or something like that.
It was well into the 20s that they were down. And they had to use so much energy to come back from that game. And then having to go on the road the next night in a back-to-back, no Harden, you're in Miami. You had to think that there was – I mean, it basically, if you always say, oh, you circle this game, it looks like a letdown game or something like that. That had every, indication that was going to be a struggle playing in Miami. But, I mean, I like you said there, I'm more concerned even on Friday alone with how they fell behind than the positivity of how they came back. Because you're not always going to be able to come back from 25 down to win a game. Even against a good team like the Cavaliers, that's not a sustainable way to win.
No, it's not. But shit, dude, when they come back, they ended up winning by what they win by 15 or 10 or something like that.
They won by 6. They won 125.
I might be thinking of the previous game against.
They've done it quite a few times now. Yeah. So,
here's the one surprise that I had, and maybe I was naive about it, but when they announced James Harden was out, against the Heat due to hamstring management. Listen, I know he has a sore hamstring, but that was kind of an important game to have him there. Maybe should have sat him against the Cavaliers. I know they probably didn't want to do that at home, but maybe
you weren't going to rest him at home. Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of an important game. The Heat are the top seed, and you have a chance to gain some serious ground. And it just didn't come to fruition. The other thing too is that Doc Rivers elected to stay an extra night in Miami so the guys could party.
I'm okay with that because that doesn't bother me. These guys have a life. The outside things don't bother me. Welcome, Jason. How you doing this morning?
Hey, Jay. Good morning.
I hate my computer.
Yeah.
I had to reboot it like 3 times. It wasn't even like showing anything. I'm like, what the hell is going on here today?
All right, so welcoming Jason Voorhees at Mustang3651. So, Jason, we're starting the show off with Sixers talk, and my overreaction statement was I'm more concerned with the win on Friday night than I am the loss on Saturday because of how hard it was to win on Friday and the huge comeback. And then it was all set up to be a loss on Saturday anyway, being a back-to-back on the road, James Harden out. That upsets me less than how hard it was to win on Friday night.
I'm not concerned about anything with the Sixers. I'm not.
That's okay.
I don't think that one win or one loss is going to make that much of a difference as far as in the scheme of things. Obviously, Harden didn't play on Saturday, so that was part and parcel of the reason why they lost. I mean, I'm not saying Harden is the end all, but obviously when you play good teams like Miami, you're going to need Harden. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's going to be there in the playoffs, so I'm at the point with the Sixers.
We're going to see Harden rested a few times because of his hamstring. We're going to see Embiid get rested because honestly, if you watch Saturday night's game, even Friday night's game a little bit, Joel just seemed to have a little less energy. You know, he's tired. And all. So you're going to see some load management for these guys, and that's rightfully so. Problem is, when one of those guys sits, that means Doc Rivers' favorite basketball player in the history of basketball, Furkan Korkmaz, gets a lot of time and started in place of James Harden. Why? I mean, can we please convince Doc Rivers? I mean, we've barely convinced him to not play an all-bench lineup. What do we have to do to convince him to not believe that he's the Turkish MJ? Because that's basically he literally puts this guy out there every time he can, and it boggles my mind because if he's not knocking down his shots, he really does nothing else well.
Would you rather have Shake Milton out there? I mean,
absolutely.
I don't know.
On Saturday night, I would have started Shake Milton over Furkan Korkmaz. I would have started George Niang instead of Furkan Korkmaz. I would have started Niang.
I like him. He's quiet, but he can knock his shot down. He plays some good basketball
player. I mean, he looks slower than me. I don't think he could. He's 6'8". I don't think he can dunk a basketball. He's just one of the oddest looking, slowest looking dudes there is on a basketball court, but he's effective.
But he gets the job done.
Yeah, but you need him coming off the bench because he's your only lone bench scorer. I would have thrown it. You know, it's the two spot. I would have thrown Isaiah Joe out there on Saturday night. That's what I would have done. We don't need any more Furkan Korkmaz. But yeah, I mean, I don't get concerned. You know, like Jason, it's all okay. And Mark, as Jason was coming on, you were saying about them spending the night partying it up in Miami. That's actually important at this point in the season. You got new James Harden. James Harden takes Tyrese Maxey out to a fancy steakhouse, shows him a lifestyle he's not used to. You saw all the Instagram and Twitter videos and stuff. That's a bonding moment for a team. And that's a big deal in my opinion. I actually like that idea. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that whole idea is overblown about, the whole party aspect. I mean, listen, these guys are human beings at the end of the day. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, they're playing in 80-some games, an 80-game season. You're telling me – so, obviously everyone has, a job. So do we party before we go out the next day? Yeah. I mean, listen, like, I think people overreact in that aspect where we try to hold these people at a higher level because of their pay status and their status. But that really is not how it works. It's not their fault that that's how much money they're getting. That's the market. That's sports. I mean, we can bitch about it. We can complain how they're overpaid and they get to, live a lavish lifestyle. Well, hey, I mean, in some senses, that's the cards that dealt. Like, they earned it. I mean, I don't think we can sit here and criticize. Now, I have seen instances where, you had somebody that partied too much, and yes, it did infiltrate into the game. That's a different circumstance. That's when you can be critical. But I don't think a one-off is necessarily the time to start saying, well, wow, they were out partying. Like, that's the reason they lost. I don't think you can correlate the two on a one-off.
They shot 7 for, I lost count, 7 for 41 from 3-point land. I'm wondering if they were kind of overlooked this game or were looking forward to hanging out in Miami Beach. Listen, it's not like the Heat are in last place. I mean, the Heat are a major obstacle for them to get to the NBA Finals. I just thought that they would have been a little more prepared, a little more serious about the game. And like, I don't think Harden should have sat out.
I mean, that's the bigger question. Should have Harden have sat out that game? If you want to manage players' health going down the stretch, I mean, I got the Sixers schedule up. You got the Bulls tonight. You could have rested against Brooklyn. Brooklyn's going to be, I mean, Durant's back, but it's not an important game. Sunday, you got Orlando in Orlando. You could rest guys there. You've got a lot. You got Detroit multiple times on the schedule. You got Charlotte multiple times on the schedule. There are games where you can rest guys. It's resting your big guys in a game where you could have cut the lead in the East to one game.
I mean, that criticism is more warranted. I agree.
That's much more warranted. I mean, you talk about the 7 of 41 shooting. Tobias Harris, we keep saying, when will Tobias Harris turn the corner? That's 2 more games this weekend. He went a combined 1 and 9 from 3. The only way Tobias Harris fits into this offense is if he starts knocking down those threes, which he's a career 40% shooter. He will hopefully start knocking them down. But every game that goes on, this stretch gets longer and longer. His confidence gets lower and lower. You have Matisse Thybulle. Matisse Thybulle did not score a single after scoring double-digit points the first 2 games of James Harden. He had 0.
He went through the weekend without the points.
He did not score. He had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block over 2 games. No points. He was a minus 20 combined in the last 2 games.
That's not like him, though.
That's an issue right there. There's a lot of those kind of issues on why the weekend was inconsistent. And like I said, Jason, I'm more concerned that we won the game against Cleveland because we were down 25 points. You should never, when you're at full strength, this Sixers squad at full strength should never be down 25 against any team. And you had to exhaust so much energy to come back, then get on a plane and fly to Miami. That's the bigger issue.
I look at it the opposite way. I look at it as anytime you do this, it builds confidence and shows that you can do that. And I think that will be huge in the playoffs because a lot of times in the playoffs, you may find yourself behind. So I think that's actually a good thing. I get what you're saying. And I think there's probably 2 ways of looking at it. I tend to look at it as the fact that they show an ability to be able to do that, to me, means more than the fact that they're actually starting out slow.
Okay. I mean, I forget the exact number. I was watching the game Friday night. And in the first half, when we were down like 20-some points, Cleveland was shooting like 60-some% from the field. So you knew that they were that's part of the reason why they were up so much. Any team shooting 60% plus, you're going to get
knocking down every shot. I mean,
knocking down every shot, and then they ended up coming back down to earth in the second half. But
well, we saw that in the Celtics game. Remember, the Celtics shot like 90% the whole game, and it was like insane. And we were just like, that can't be sustained over a long period of time. Obviously, it was a one-off. I mean, a game where the Sixers just lost. I mean, you're going to have losses, and let's face it, we've talked about it, I believe, on last week's a couple shows with you, maybe the show with Mark, that it's good to actually have some pitfalls here before we get close to the playoffs. We want to see how they respond, and I don't want to necessarily call it adversity, but when you lose your first game with Harden on the team, that's a little bit of a stumbling block. So let's see how they respond now. That's going to be more.
They got Chicago tonight, who now Chicago's actually in a free fall. They've lost 4 games. They were right there battling the Heat for the 1 spot. They're all the way down to the 4 spot. this is a game that the Bulls need tonight. But so do the Sixers. So how do the Sixers respond? But on the other side of it, you got the Bulls still needing to make a response as well. So it's a huge, like I said, we've been saying it for like a month now, that this stretch was the most important stretch of the season. How do the Sixers respond? How do they do it? I've said it since day one of the Harden trade. The only thing that's going to hold the Sixers back is Doc Rivers. Will Doc Rivers have this team prepared to play tonight? That's the question.
Yeah, I think so. They're going to be home. They're going to be full squad, and unless they sit Embiid, which I don't think they would do something like that. I doubt it. Yeah, I hope not. I think they come back, and I put the nail in the coffin of the Chicago Bulls. I think losing in Miami probably puts a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth. And I know that they're coming home. Their expectations are that they're going to crush any opponent at home. And I think that they're going to come out, and they're going to come out solid, and they're going to have a pretty easy win tonight. That's my lock for the evening.
Okay, I'm looking at the schedule, and I actually think the Brooklyn game would be the game that you would rest Joel, because DeAndre Jordan will have enough time by then to be integrated into the team. He could start center. Brooklyn does not have a massive center that you need Joel Embiid guarding, every play. And then if you do that, because tonight we got Tuesday and Wednesday off. You give Joel Thursday's game off, then they're off Friday and Saturday. So you give Joel Embiid Tuesday through Saturday off. That's a nice stretch there. If you want to give him a 1-game maintenance, you're really giving him 6 days off there. Mm-hmm. So that if I was coaching, I wanted to get Joel a blow. That's the game I would do it on, because that's a nice stretch there to be able to have 5 or 6 days off to rest up and get that energy back.
You think Ben Simmons will be on the bench on the 10th?
He is not going to be on the bench. There's zero. He is traveling with the team. They did say it yesterday that he's on the road with the team, but there's no way he sits on that bench.
I think if he is in the building, there's no way Embiid sits, and I think he'll have the biggest game of his career, because I think he has it out for that guy big time, and I'm really anxious to see him play that Nets team against Simmons and see what Embiid is capable of, because I think he could put a 50 spot up with 20 rebounds just to prove a point that he's the man and just totally embarrass Simmons. I really think he wants to do that, and I think he's held his bit his lip for years about Simmons and Simmons being a prima donna, which is what he was, while he was busting his ass trying to make things happen for the Sixers. I think he wants to stuff it down his throat.
Just think about it.
Shame
there's a chance
he's not playing yet.
The Brooklyn Nets have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They had James Harden. They are tied for the 10th spot in the East right now.
They are 3-8 since the All-Star break.
They could miss the playoffs. A team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on it just goes, yeah, you want to talk Sixers trash all the time. I'm going to talk Nets trash. There's a chance to say the Brooklyn Nets may not make the playoffs. That's not good. How do you have a team that talented and you just miss the playoffs? That's not good at all.
They got a bunch of head cases on that team.
That's all they got. And you got a coach that never coached before in Steve Nash. He coached last year for them, but I never bought into Steve Nash as a head coach.
They traded for Ben Simmons. That should tell you all you need to know.
Do you think they already regret that trade?
I think that GM, if I owned that team, he'd be on the hot seat. A, for making that trade and not including one of those young talents in that trade, and B, to see what the early results are, because the Sixers are smoking teams, and the Nets are 3-8 since the All-Star break, and that's not good, man.
And to Mark's point, Ben Simmons doesn't need to be embarrassed by Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons embarrasses himself every day by his behavior.
Oh, so, anyway, how do we keep talking about the Brooklyn Nets? Back to the Sixers.
I know. We got to refocus. Refocus. All right.
So, you say that's a great segue. So, are they refocused, Jason, for tonight? And do they come out with the W tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with Mark. I think that, obviously you want to win every single game, but we know that's not possible. I've been saying I'd like to see a little bit of a tough stretch for them as far as, maybe some, little bit of adversity. It's always good to build that character. and you want to do it now. You don't want to do it too close to the playoffs and then have kind of, a little bit of doubt creep in. You want to have that edge, and to do that tonight would be the perfect time to come out and as Mark said, put the nail in the coffin, with Chicago, because you don't want Chicago to start believing in themselves again. You want to show that you're back to your dominant self. Hopefully Harden is back, and I think.
Even with the tough loss to the Bulls or to the Heat on Saturday, the Sixers are still a 7-point favorite tonight at home. That goes to tell you that even the bettors think that the Sixers, that was a one-off, that was a letdown game. It was all that we've just talked about, and that they'll be right back at it. The Bulls are, just for notes, they've got 3 guys: Patrick Williams, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, all ruled out already for the night. Nikolai Vucevic, former Sixer, is day-to-day. He may not play. So that's part of the Bulls' issue, is that they have quite a few injury issues going on right now. But they still got DeMar DeRozan, who's a really great basketball player, having his best year of his career this year. If anything, he's probably 2 right behind Joel Embiid in the MVP race right now. Definitely top 3. You still got Zach LaVine, who's a star that some people wanted in Philly. So they still have a talented team. But the Sixers need to come out, put a stamp on it, make a statement again, not fall behind, be dominant right from the get-go, and see if they can keep that momentum going into Thursday. This is the toughest stretch, but also a great stretch because there's so many days off in the next week or two. So that's so crucial to get wins in games like this, and have you lose tonight and then you've got 2 days off of practice versus you win tonight and have 2 days of practice. That energy and that feeling at practice the next 2 days, totally different coming off a loss or coming off a win. You
want to build continuity, so they need to win these games, and because there are those breaks. Like if you're losing and then you're going to sit and think about, well, why did we lose? What did we do wrong? What can we do better? You got to get into this continuity and the flow. And I think they have it. I think they do have it. I think Harden really fitted in really smoothly. Excuse me. Really smoothly. He gelled with this team, which is a great start. Just hope it continues. That's all. And I don't see why it won't. How many games they have this week, Phil? They got the Bulls. They got the Nets.
Thursday. Yeah, they got today. They got Thursday against the Nets, and they don't play again until Sunday.
Okay.
So that's it. So they got 2 days off after today. They play the Nets, and they got 2 days off. That's it. That's all they got. It's a really light schedule this week. That's why these games are important, because they're games you should win. When you got that kind of Joe Bucci checking in. Harris needs to get more locked in. Matisse a part of the. For as good as Matisse looked the first 2 Harden games, he looked that bad the last 2 games. And I still don't know what to think or do. I'm a Tobias Harris fan. I know my boy Scotty from DSM's a big Tobias fan, and we keep hanging in there for him, but he just keeps letting us down day in, day out. I don't know what it's going to take to get Tobias Harris to turn the corner, other than he's a scorer, he's a shooter. Shooter's got to shoot. He's just got to he's got to shoot himself out of the slump to an extent, without hurting the team.
I'm curious what the impact Harden is on him, like behind the scenes in the locker room, because you've all seen Harden kind of take Maxey under his wings, and to a lesser extent Matisse. He kind of stepped in and pushed him aside, and Tobias, I think, is lost. I don't think he knows what his role is, and I think it's affecting his play on the court. And God, I hope he kind of figures it out soon. But again, throw up the shots. Once they start landing, I think his confidence will build, but he's not there yet. And time's running out. I mean, it's been like 4 or 5 games so far.
Jason,
yeah.
Do you agree? You got to just shoot yourself out of it, or is there something else that Tobias could do to get himself out of it?
I think you keep shooting.
I mean, I've been saying it. Like, I just think he's having. I hate to sound like I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being real. Mm-hmm. I think he's just having his worst season of his career, and sometimes that's going to happen. I think we always like overanalyze stuff. Like, instead of just making it simple, he's just struggling. Sometimes people struggle. Like, I've seen baseball players go through major slumps. I mean, Bryce Harper, not last year, but the year prior, went through that slump where he was hitting 200 before the All-Star break.
Right.
I mean, it just happens sometimes. But we as fans we're so locked in, not just fans, people in general, this society, we are so hooked on instant gratification that it makes our like we go crazy when something's not like if something's staying the same and we want it to change and it doesn't, we get all in our feelings and we kind of get like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And we continue to talk about it. When in reality, it's like, okay, he's a struggling athlete right now. Yes, he's a shooter. I agree with you. I think the way out of a slump is to do what you do best more. So if he's struggling with shooting, then he needs to put up more shots. And that realistically is the only way he's going to get better and improve. He might not get where he wants to get this year. It might be one of those types where you just say, man, Tobias Harris had a bad year. Does that mean he sucks? No. Does that mean he's not worthy of being on the team? I don't think it means any of that. I just think it's a guy that's, he was definitely put into a different role that he wasn't comfortable in this year. And now it's going to be a little bit of time to get back to feeling comfortable now that he's not in that role. So,
all right, so are we all in agreement that the Sixers win tonight?
Yes, Sixers win.
Yes.
I think they cover the spread. And I think Embiid and Harden both go for over 22 points each. And Harden will have another 10 or 11 assists.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think you're wrong, Jay. I think that's pretty spot on.
All right, let's transition away from Sixers because we got other things to talk about today on this jam-packed show. And we already spent way too much time on Sixers, so we're going to roll into the next topic. We won't spend long because we've already talked a lot of baseball over the last couple of weeks. Players Union made a new proposal, and it's not going to be accepted, but they have given in on some rule changes. Now, first off, they've given in on these rule changes, but the rule changes don't go into effect till next season, which to me is dumb. If you're going to make why wait a year to institute the rule changes? I don't know. They've agreed to accept the shift ban. There's going to be no more shift in baseball starting in 2023. They've agreed to a pitch clock, which I'm actually okay with. It's going to be 14-second pitch clock when there's no runners on base. When there's runners on base, a 19-second pitch clock. So they've agreed to that, again, in 2023. And they've agreed to expand the bases, which will help stolen bases, also player safety and stuff, again, for 2023. They have not accepted, and they refuse to accept robot umpires, for like balls and strikes, which I'm actually okay with that because I think that takes away way too much of the human element of the game, not having real umpires out there. Mark, we'll start with you. Thoughts on these rule changes and what they mean for the game? I know they mean more offense, but again, I'm so against banning the shift. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Phil. Listen, I like the pitch clock a lot because you do have to speed these games up. I mean, they keep getting longer and longer. It's just and listen, let's be honest. Baseball is a boring sport. It is a boring sport, but it still is America's pastime. I do like the pitch clock. The shift. Gosh, does it explain to me what the rule is where they say you can't do a shift? The shortstop can't go past second base.
They haven't revealed what the details of it are going to be, but you will no longer see 4 infielders all on the same side of the field on a dead pull hitter. Joey Gallo, Bryce Harper will not have to face. You don't have to worry about them having to lay down a bunt because to break the shift. There will be rules. They'll probably have zones where the shortstop has to stay in this space. The second baseman has to stay in this space. And that's probably how they'll do it from here on out.
Which I guess I'm okay with. But, like, when you have the entire team on the one side of the field, like, that's bullshit. I mean, I don't like that. I still want to give them the opportunity to have positioning in the field, but nothing, like, crazy like that. The robot umpires, I don't want to see any type of automated ball and strike zones there. What else was there?
They're going to make the bases bigger.
The bases bigger stolen bases have died. Nobody steals bases anymore.
Nope.
And maybe that kind of gets people
if you think
a
about
little more
most
aggressive.
base attempts, it's this close, whether it's safe or out. If you add an inch to the bases, it just makes that much closer. It kind of eliminates some of that. I'm still stuck on is the banning the shift really necessary so that Bryce Harper, instead of hitting 298, hits 310? Instead of driving in 110 RBIs, he's going to have 115 more RBIs. Is it really going to make that much of a difference? Then you're going to start complaining that pitchers don't have 2.3 ERAs anymore, or that Cy Young winner is going to start winning the Cy Young at with 3.5 ERAs because you're going to add a few extra runs to the game. I don't see the benefit of banning the shift. Jason.
This is funny because I've generally, me, I've actually on a show, I had a rant about the shift, and I'm usually generally hardcore against it. Mm-hmm. But I've done some research, and the more I've looked into things, to me, baseball is a game of cycles if you look at it. So if you remember back when they raised the mound, mm-hmm. because hitting was doing so well, so they raised the mound. And remember, Bob Gibson obviously had those seasons where it was unbelievable. So what happens with baseball is they seem to change rules every so often to get the other side to do better or improve. I think that's what's going on here. Obviously, you just nailed it with your talk about it's going to raise averages. Mm-hmm. I do think that the shift, I'm not hardcore against banning it totally. I think the shift should be allowed, but I do think, to Mark's point, I do think that it is overused, and I think there should be some kind of guidelines, because if you have 4 guys on the other side, I get the whole thing. Well, then that the hitter should know that they need to go the other way. That's the other person's argument to that, and they'll say, well, Bryce Harper needs to learn how to hit it the other way. But let's face it, when you're in a league that preaches strikeout or home run, to expect that is asinine, because nobody is doing that.
Well, that's part of the
league where we're in a league where everyone's and it's starting not just in the major league. This is starting at little league level, guys. They're being taught either home run or strikeout. That, first of all, that's analytics, which we could do a whole.
Actually, hold on. I was going to say that the shift is analytics. So we're all about moving in a more analytical world. And now baseball is going to use a new rule to take analytics. The analytics say, put 7 guys on the right side of the field. No, you can't do that anymore.
I'm all for limiting analytics. I'm not saying eliminate them, but I definitely think analytics have ruined.
They are limiting analytics by banning the shift, because
and that's fine.
It's a numbers thing.
Are they banning the shift totally, or are they banning the 4 players on one side? That's where I'm at.
They've not said the details. They are banning the shift. That is all it says. Which my guess is you are going to see 2 guys on one side of second base, and you're going to see 2 guys on the other side of second base. You're not going to see 3 or 4 on one side or the other. So probably the second baseman probably will not be allowed past second base. The shortstop won't be allowed on the other side. That's just going to be the way it is. And that's taking away analytics. Why? I mean, they always show the stats, during the broadcast, Bryce Harper hits this many hits to left field, this many up the middle, this many right. Who cares then? Because it's not going to matter anymore, keeping track of that stat anymore. So they're taking away the analytical. They're taking away the strategy. A coach should have that right. So are you going to say in football you can't blitz on second downs anymore? Are you going to say in basketball you can't run a zone in the third quarter because it gives them an advantage? Look, you're taking away the strategy and the analytics of the team by banning the shift. I'm okay with the pitch count. I'm okay with the base. If you want to raise or lower the mound, whatever it is, but the shift is a piece of strategy, and sports is all about strategy, and it's taking away a piece of the strategy. I already am against. I know it helps speed up the game, but when they made the rule a few years ago where a relief pitcher has to stay in for 3 batters, you're taking away strategy. You can't do the lefty-lefty. It's a strategy. A coach should be able to strategize and play his team the way he wants to play his team. And these kind of rules to help offense takes away the strategy. And that bothers me.
But you have to look at it how they're looking at it as a business perspective. Do you think they're worried? Do you think they give a shit about strategy, Phil? They're worried about money, and they're already losing. We've already talked about that. They've lost already. They've lost a ton of people by alienating them already. And now it's like, okay, well, we want more offense, which we do need more offense. Like, think about it. Like I talked about it before. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with banning the shift, because I agree that you have to have strategy. You want that. But I look at it at a deeper level with the analytics. Mm-hmm. My frustration is that analytics have actually taken away from the actual game and the fundamentals of the game. That's where I'm at with it. And I agree. Like, I think there's got to be a balance. But I'm looking at it why they're doing it. They're obviously doing it because they want to make the game more fun. Right. They figure if they take away the shift, you're going to see a lot more people hitting 300.
I understand exactly everything you're saying. I understand. I just don't agree with it.
No, but and I agree.
Baseball's never going to be.
I guess I'm like,
I know baseball's America's pastime. It'll always be called America's pastime. But let's be honest, it's the third biggest sport in America. It'll never get back to being one of the big two. It never will. Banning the shift will never bring it back to the basketball or football level, the money, the TV, the viewership. That stuff, it's never going to get back to that level. So the people that actually care about baseball, that have been watching baseball for 30, 40 years like me, that still appreciates the game at a deeper level, you're upsetting me. And I'm one of the few fans that still is a diehard, that still goes to games, that watch. I watch literally 6 or 7 innings of every single game, at least. And you're taking away the purity of the game by taking away the strategy of the coaches. Because honestly, a manager in baseball has very minor role. They play such a little part in the game, and another little part of it you're taking away. Sorry, Mark. You can go.
No, and I agree. Yeah. I was kind of using your thing that you usually do with Howie Roseman and what he will do as far as what we want him to do or what our opinion of him is.
No, I know.
That's basically what I'm saying. I don't necessarily agree with it either. But I guess I'm kind of at the point with baseball where whatever I disagree with, they do the opposite. So it doesn't.
So I should agree with the shift. So maybe they won't do it.
So Mark, a lot of listen. The issue isn't the rules of the baseball. Jason, you said it. The issue is home run or strikeout, and it's starting in your travel ball leagues, launch angles, velocity off the bat, like these useless damn stats, and your analytics. Jay, in your what you do for a living, I'm sure you have reports that you have to read or whatnot that tell you, you know, where you should place your product or where your most of your customers are coming in at any given point. And for me, like I've lived through those types of reports, and managers have asked me manage through these reports without having the human touch on what, you know. The report might say this, but if you're in the field and dealing with things, like the report doesn't say the whole picture. And I think the problem that baseball runs into is you got more and more of these Ivy League school GMs that are saying this is the report and you need to manage off of this report and not taking into consideration what your gut tells you. A guy like Charlie Manuel would never succeed in today's baseball element that we have here. And if you want to talk about pitch counts and number of batters faced and pitch clocks and stuff like that, honestly, I think they should limit the roster to 10 pitchers. Limit it to 10 pitchers. And you don't have to play games with guys coming in. I mean, before the 3-batter rule, but like comes in and he faces one batter and then another pitcher faces one batter. And all these guys have to warm up, and it just prolongs a game that doesn't have to be prolonged the way it is. They've lost a generation of people, of kids really for baseball. I coach Little League and I see it. We struggle to keep our numbers up. And what few talented kids that are out there, they're on these travel leagues that pay thousands of dollars for year-round instruction that honestly aren't instructed in the right way. And so when they do succeed and do go to college or get drafted in the minor leagues, you have these talents that either strike out or hit a home run. And I live for the day. I'm for being strategic and bunting, stealing a base. You have to bat the pitcher, or you're going to pinch hit now, or you're going to let him go another inning. Pitchers go in 9 innings. Like all that stuff made baseball. And slowly but surely it's been taken away. And now you're going to have a bastardized version of baseball that requires no thinking and just throw the ball and hit the ball. And maybe you'll score a couple home runs or score a couple runs. And it won't be the thinking man's game anymore. It'll be just like every other sport that's out there.
Mark, I mean, you mentioned the pitchers batting. I mean, we haven't even talked. I mean, that's pretty much a done deal that started this year. There'll be a universal DH. And you know what? That one, I'm against it, but I was willing to fall in line and get behind that one because I knew it was the evolution of the game. It was eventually going to happen. And having 2 different rules for 2 different, leagues, stupid. But, we didn't even get to talk that there's going to be a DH across the league. And I think that's great for hitters because it'll prolong so many people's career. Ryan Howard would have played maybe a little bit longer if he didn't have to play first base. I go back into about 10, 12 years ago, there was a guy that his career ended pretty early considering how he was playing, Jermaine Dye. He was a really good player for the White Sox for a while, really great hitter, but he just couldn't play the field. And there just wasn't enough DH spots. He would have played 3 more years if there was a universal DH.
If we had a DH back then, we would have had Jim Thome and Ryan Howard in the lineup. And tell me how many runs that lineup would produce. Could
you imagine? You would have had to split you couldn't have had them both batting like 4 or 5. You would have had to go 1-3, 1-5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? That would have been wow. Everybody knows I got Jim Thome hanging up right over my head right there. I'm a big Jim Thome guy, so I love that.
I think Mark made a lot of good points. Like for me, and obviously I'm like you, Phil. I'm a baseball purist at heart. I mean, at the bottom of my heart is baseball. Obviously, obviously, I have a little bit of frustration right now with baseball. But the point I'm making is that I remember back in the day. Now, obviously, I'm a Phillies fan, but the team that I was most enamored with back in the 80s was the St. Louis Cardinals. And what did the St. Louis Cardinals do well? Well, first of all, they had Whitey Herzog as their manager, and he was very against analytics because what he would do is he wanted a team that was built with speed and would use the fundamentals of the game to its advantage. And the Cardinals were the absolute best at doing that. They stole bases, they bunted, they didn't, they hit some home runs, but they hit situational home runs. Like they were about fundamentals, and that was fun. When you take fundamentals out of the game, it makes it boring. So you talk about a league that's trying to get people back. That's part of the that's why I'm so against analytics. I'm not saying take analytics away, but what I am saying is they need to be limited, and there needs to be a human element. And if you don't have that, you'll never get back what you had. You won't, because it's not fun. It's boring. So anyway, my 2 cents.
All right, let's move on. So we still got 2 more topics, so we got to be fast, because we got like less than 20 minutes here. So I don't know a lot about it, so this could be a quick topic. Mark wanted to talk about Coach K, his last home game as the Duke head coach. Was it yesterday or Saturday? I forget. Saturday. Coach K, one of the greatest coaches, not greatest basketball coaches, not best college basketball coaches, one of the best coaches of all time. He's calling it a career after this year. This will be his last NCAA run, I think. I'm assuming Duke's going to get into the tournament. I honestly don't even know because I've watched like 3 seconds of college basketball. So, Mark, I know you're a big Nova guy. I know you're a big Jay Wright guy. But thoughts on Coach K and what he's meant for basketball, sports, and the fact that a legendary career is coming to an end very soon here.
All right. And this is our next topic, Jay. To quote The Dark Knight, either you die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. And Coach K stuck around too long and became the villain. When he started at Duke, the Duke was a mid-major team who was in the shadows of UNC, and he built up that program in the 80s and to the powerhouse that it is today. And he did that with kids that came to the school, stayed 4 years, went to class, got a degree, and did it, quote unquote, the right way. And then maybe for the last decade, he has just morphed into every other college coach that's out there. He's John Calipari, in my opinion. I think he's a fraud. I think he's a disgrace. I do think towards the end he is bad for basketball. If you even seen what he did at his ceremony on Saturday night, where he it was a time to celebrate his career, and he badmouthed his own team for losing on his night. And I just thought that was a disgrace. His assistant coaches refused to shake the hands of the UNC coaches. And listen, I hate UNC just as much as I hate Duke and the ACC in general. But I'm damn glad that they lost Coach's K game. I thought that was great. And I know Scotty is a big Duke guy, a big Coach K guy.
Scotty is going to tear this episode up. He is going to
I'm surprised he's not on here now.
He is going to call you the F out for that one. Let's be honest. I think your Villanova bias is coming through a little bit. I don't know if I would go as far as saying he's disgrace and that kind of stuff. I mean,
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with him and with Duke is that they get all this favorable coverage with ESPN and Fox and tournament, and everybody loves Coach K. And more often than not, they shit the bed in the tournament. They have a bad loss in the tournament.
Last year he won the tournament was 2015. He's got 5 titles. He's got 12 Final Fours. He's won 15
the love for ACC basketball nauseates me.
He's got 3 Olympic gold medals as a coach. So let's not forget about that. Actually, no. He's got 5 and gold medals as a coach because he was, as an assistant back in 84 and 92.
Yeah, but he's a holier than thou attitude. Then what was the one game where Duke lost big and he grabbed the player on the opposing team and basically chastised him for shooting a basket with the last seconds against him, that wasn't the right way to play basketball. And then when COVID hit, there was a student reporter that was asking questions via Zoom, and he didn't like the tone of the questions, and he chastised the student reporter for Duke. He is ignorant, arrogant, fraud.
I'm not disagreeing with those parts of it, but he's not a fraud of a coach. I mean, he's got over 1,500 games coached.
Yeah, he's
76% of his 1,500 games coached in college, he's won. That's a pretty damn good record as a coach. Jason, real quick, you get a couple minutes here to talk about Coach K before we move on to the Batman.
I love Mark's passion, by the way.
If anybody watching wants to join the DSM group chat just to watch Mark and Scotty.
But Mark's passion is built on wearing his heart on his sleeve.
Damn straight.
So Nova hat that he's wearing right now.
But by Mark saying that Coach K, by Mark making these statements and saying that, he's basically overrated or, whatever the point that you're trying to make, that's the same thing as saying that Tom Brady is that way. The reason that Tom Brady is the villain is because a lot of people that have success get that way for a reason. They're confident people. They're arrogant. That's just their nature. And a lot of times we love to hate these guys, but you can criticize somebody and say you don't like them. But when you go to the border of saying that, man, they're a fraud or this because your feelings, you're not separating the two there. You have to separate the feelings from the realistic part of the situation.
Certain coaches I can't. Rick Pitino, John Calipari, and Mike Krzyzewski, they're like the top 3 that no matter what you say or tell me, I will never like those guys. I will never like that. And Tom Brady, I'll go back to Tom Brady. When he first came on the scene, everybody loved him. He was a great Cinderella story. As time went on, like again, you either die a hero or turn into the villain, and that's what a lot of these guys do. And honestly, now I don't hate Tom Brady nearly as much as I used to. A, because we beat him. B, because he ended his career in Tampa. But guys like John Calipari is bad for college basketball. He helped perfect the one and done. And the minute his program starts to feel heat, he scoots away to the next program. That's a bad dude. Rick Pitino, same deal. And he's coaching it over in Iona now. I don't know how he got another job with all the stuff that he had to deal with. And also 2 Italian Americans. I'm an Italian American. He besmirches Italian Americans, to both of those guys. I don't like it.
We can agree on that part. All right, so let's segue to the Batman. I thought we'd have at least 15 to 20 minutes to talk the Batman. We got about 10 minutes. Jason saw it. Jason and Mark are both huge comic book. I mean, I love my superhero movies. I'm not as in depth as you guys are. Jason, you've seen it. You've got to give us, first off, a spoiler-free. My hand is on the mute button. I'm ready to mute you if you accidentally say a spoiler here. So you have to give me a non-spoiler review of what some are calling one of the best Batman movies of all time, including yourself.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I promise I won't give any spoilers.
I got my fingers ready. I'm on the unofficial dump button right here.
But what you're hearing is absolutely on point. I'm not going to lie, and this is going to come out as sacrilege, but honestly, this Batman rivals The Dark Knight. And I know that's crazy to say, and you're probably thinking there's no friggin' way. But if you're a Batman fan, then what you expect from Batman is a dark Batman, a Batman that is Batman. And to me, this Batman produced exactly that feeling. I couldn't have been happier when I watched it, because honestly, going in, you always say, is it going to live up to the hype? You know, everyone's saying, wow, it's great. And then you go there and it's such a letdown.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, man, when it comes to a 3-hour movie, we talk about living in a time where, you know, our attention spans are that of a gnat, right? Well, if you have my attention for 3 hours, then it's a damn good movie. And it had my attention the entire time. Like, what I liked about it, it wasn't crazy over the top with the CGI, which you see a lot of times with these superhero movies, where they go overboard and drastic. And I'll give you an example. I'm not going to have a spoiler, but I will tell you that the Batmobile was 100% more realistic than the previous Batmobiles that they used in the Christian Bale versions. Who was this previous one? I'm drawing a blank. Ben Affleck. Like, the Batmobiles in those Batmans were like so futuristic, and it takes away from it for me, being a comic book fan and kind of knowing the real story of Batman. Paul Dano was phenomenal. Now, obviously, you had Heath Ledger have a legendary performance of the Joker, and Heath Ledger was just as much, if not more important, than Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. And rightfully so. He was around for most of the movie. Now, the difference is, I will say, you don't really get to see much of Paul Dano. And if for those of you who don't know, Paul Dano plays the Riddler, who is the main villain. Colin Farrell, phenomenal job playing the Penguin. Like, he had to
he's a great actor.
Make his face fat, because obviously the Penguin's, a heavier set, character. Did a tremendous job. Like, to me, like I said, everything about this Batman, it was dark. It just provided more of a comic book feel. And for me, like I said, everyone has their own likes and dislikes, but I'm telling you, man, this was one of the best Batmans I've seen. And I'll give it a 9 out of 10 rating on the Jason Voorhees scale.
On the Jason Voorhees scale, I need a definition of what the Jason Voorhees. I'm going to need like your top 10 movies to rate them so that I can see what the Jason Voorhees scale really is. First off, I'll let Mark go in a second here. The thing that scares me, I'm not a movie theater guy. I love movies, but I hate sitting in a movie theater. I'm a bigger guy. I don't like sitting in a movie theater for 3. The problem is when I see a movie go over 2.5 hours, I struggle to go see it in theaters. It's not my attention span. It's just sitting in a seat for 2.5 hours that bothers me. So saying that it kept you there and that's great. I mean, I went to see the most recent James Bond movie when that came out, Die Another Day, and that was almost 3 hours. And I had to get up I had to find a moment in the middle of the movie just to get up and walk around because even though I'm a huge James Bond fan, I couldn't sit there for 3 hours. So that is a fear. But you bring up how Dano wasn't in the movie a lot, even though he was the main villain as the Riddler, and it made me think of James Bond when Javier Bardem played Silva in Skyfall, and he was not in the movie for the first 70 minutes of the movie, but he was there in the movie, even though he wasn't there. And that's the sign of a great villain, when you just have that little lingering thought of who it is in the background, and then when they make their entrance and their appearance, it just makes it that much more impactful. Mark.
I think superhero movies are only as good as the villains that they fight. I think everybody's curious to see what those villains are. Jay, you say you're a comic book guy. It's based on The Long Halloween, or loosely based on this book, which is actually a fantastic read. Phil, go to your comic book shop and buy this book and read it. It's really good.
Shops out there still?
There sure are.
Okay.
There's a lot of them that are out there, and they're actually pretty fun to go to. I'm a Batman guy too, although I shied away from this movie because of the Twilight guy being in it. But are you telling me to set my concerns aside?
I'm telling you, Robert Pattinson. Like when I heard that it was the guy from the Vampire Diaries, I was like, you got to be kidding me. How could he possibly play Batman? I'm telling you, he pulled it off with flying colors. Like, honestly, like he provided that dark Batman that we've been missing. Like, Christian Bale wasn't dark to me. He was a little bit, reserved, but I wouldn't have considered that dark. Pattinson, it's brilliant. Like how he just, like his look, he had like the longer hair. So it was more like the Bruce Wayne of comic books, like the longer hair. Just, I'm telling you, man, when you see it, you'll understand. You have to see it to understand what I'm saying, but it's more realistic to what I would expect from watching Batman. Like, even like the Batman, you look back to even like the Michael Keaton Batman. Like, Michael Keaton's a great actor, and I'm not saying it wasn't a good movie, but what I'm saying is that this is a more realistic picture of what I envision with Batman. And oh, by the way, Zoe Kravitz, phenomenal job as Catwoman. Like, unbelievable performance. Well, actually, Selena Kyle, but obviously we know Selena Kyle is Catwoman.
I know that. Phil might not know that.
Now,
I know who it is.
I'm not going to give a spoiler, but there is a little bit of chemistry there with Batman and Catwoman, let's just say. Definitely, like I said, Jeffrey Wright played James Gordon, did a great job too. Like, I just thought all the characters that they picked were perfect for the roles, and I don't know what I'm trying to think of a way to explain it other than saying dark, because I've said it like 100 times, but Batman, the character is more like, I get more out of it by seeing a character that's like, I don't know as much about, that I want to know more about. Whereas some of these characters, it's almost like you already know about them because they show so much. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
Here's what I heard is that it got to its roots of Batman being a detective, and it was a detective type movie. Was that accurate? Is that accurate to say?
Spot on.
And the other thing that I heard that, excites me a little bit, whenever you have reboots, they kind of feel the need to go back to the beginning. Like, they didn't go back and show why Batman, they didn't relive him and his parents. They constantly do that in movies when they reboot. It's like, we already know, the backstory. We don't need to hear it again and stuff like that. But to me, what Batman always is to me is, I don't care about the actor that's playing Batman. I care about the actor that's playing Bruce Wayne, because that's who Batman really is. And that's what, like, Christian Bale to me played a decent Batman. I didn't really buy him as Bruce Wayne. I don't think I think Val Kilmer, maybe Michael Keaton were probably the two Batmans that I bought the most as Bruce Wayne. And that's what it comes down to me with that character.
You nailed it. And Pattinson, like I said, played both to the T. Like, Bruce Wayne,
he's a conflicted person.
Yeah, and you could tell he's struggling with himself the whole entire movie. And what was also cool about how they did this movie, he actually narrates some parts of the movie. Like in the beginning of the movie, he's narrating, like talking as him, but you don't see him. They're showing the movie scenes, but he's talking. That was cool too, how they did that, because it kind of gives you a build up of like a slow build of, wow, what's coming next? You know what I'm saying? Or what's he thinking? And, obviously it was a great ending too, at least in my opinion, because it sets up for the next one, which I'm hoping that will be a next one.
Like next year or something.
All right, so real quick before we wrap this show up, Mark, you got a great comic book there. You're showing me before the air. Let's bring that up on the.
So this is Marauders number 21. It's an X-Men themed book for Marvel. Nick Foles tweeted out in the summertime that he had been contacted by Marvel and asked if they can use his likeness in the book. And sure enough, our Super Bowl hero, Nick Foles, is featured. He's the man in the tuxedo at this wedding here. That is the theme of this book. Nick Foles, Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl hero, also in the Marvel universe.
That's right. Can we get him in the next? Can we get him in a Marvel movie?
I would love to see him in a Marvel movie. That'd be great. But all kidding aside, but from a sports perspective, listen, this is a sports, very testosterone-like deal. And then there's comic books, which those worlds sometimes don't interact with each other. Keep in mind, Brian Dawkins is a huge Wolverine guy. Hugh Douglas collects comic books. If you follow him on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, like there are a lot of athletes that are into this stuff big time. And every now and then you can see a crossover. I have a book and I couldn't find it today. It's called Totally Awesome Hulk. And on the cover is Jeremy Lin, who used to play for the Knicks. And there's a lot of that stuff that does cross over from time to time. NFL actually allowed Marvel to create a football character called NFL Super Pro. He's a superhero in the Marvel universe with like Spider-Man that wears like the NFL shield. A really corny and campy book, but again, those worlds do cross from time to time, and both worlds are fun. I love sports and I love my comics. And that's all I do.
We're going to wrap it up there for the day. Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Hit that share button, like button, retweet, but make sure you're following on all outlets, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Following me on Twitter at Bearded Knowledge, Mark at Mark with a C, Moscatelli, and Jason at Mustang3651. We're brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Use promo code DSM at checkout to get your 20% off and free shipping. We'll be back tomorrow with another one of I don't have my name written down, but I got another football player from the Pro Level Sports Agency coming on tomorrow morning. We'll continue our football journey, and we'll see what happens. We'll probably be recapping a Sixers win over the Bulls, and who knows what else we'll be talking about tomorrow. But make sure you're locked into DSM Media and Trending in the AM every single day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. And as we end every show, Sixers in 5.
In 5.
Yeah, buddy.